What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Chargers franchise in Madden 17, and we are here for the mid-season of Year 3, and we are sitting with an undefeated record at 8-0, and it's been a really good group effort. We've had a strong offense, strong defense. Philip Rivers has had an amazing year, I would say a renaissance year, but it wasn't like he was bad before. It was. This has just probably been one of the best years of his career, probably as good as his 2013 season. So we'll take a look at the stats, and we'll take a look at our team stats, because that's not usually something I do, and then we'll take a look at our schedule going forward, as well as where some of these ranks in the league are for Philip Rivers. We'll talk about that first. Philip Rivers having one of the best seasons of his career up to this point, if you take a look at his career stats and his best passer rating. This would actually be his best passer rating, on par with, actually well above par, of 2008 and 2013, which I personally believe was the best season of his career. That was the year he won NFL Comeback Player of the Year. 09 was also a very good season, and 10 he was above a 100 passer rating as well. He's really never had those couple average to below average seasons. 2007 was really only his below average season. Or was only below average season. He had 2 or 3 years where he was around average, because 88 quarterback rating is usually about average. But this is the best season of his career. It's also probably the last season of his career, so he's going out pretty well. It's not nearly close to the top for yards per game. Yards per attempt, it's first. Completion percentage, it's first. Touchdowns, won't be able to tell until the end of the season, but definitely an amazing year out of Philip Rivers, and he might end up going out on top as a result of it. Melvin Gordon, been injured, obviously. Had a decent start to the season before getting injured. He's out for the next 5 weeks, so he'll return toward the end of the season. But if we take a look at his game log throughout the year, he really hasn't played all that well. He's had 2 games where he was above 4 yards per carry, and this game he was actually exactly at 4 yards per carry. He had a long of 72, so that's kind of skewed his stats, and it's going to be the same for Procise, but I feel that our line is going to improve in the second half of the season in terms of run blocking. There's really no way it could get any worse as it is, but not a bad season out of CJ Procise so far, given the circumstances. Poor offensive line, not a whole lot of opportunity up until the most recent game that you guys saw the other day. I kind of misused him earlier on as a receiving back. I tried to get him the ball and let him make plays in open space, but I really tried to get away from that and only hitting him if he's open or if it's just a check down option. So his receiving yardage stats are going to be a little skewed in terms of yards per catch. He's actually averaging more yards per catch or almost more yards per carry than yards per catch, but he's had a solid year. I'm definitely going to try and keep him around next season and for the foreseeable future. I don't know why I'm looking at all that other stuff, but not a bad year from our running game, given the circumstances, but definitely could be improved. I hope that we do get a little bit better down the stretch in terms of that. Receiving, amazing years out of Keenan Allen as well as Davante Adams. Keenan Allen is averaging over 100 yards per game at 103 yards a game. He has 11 touchdowns as well halfway through the season. He has a legitimate shot of breaking the touchdown record this season, as well as having over 100 yards per game, which wouldn't be any sort of record, but it would still be pretty damn impressive. And Davante Adams is putting up elite numbers as well, and I know that's probably helped by the fact that he is probably the best receiver in the league this year, starting along with him, but he's been pretty much just as productive. The yards per catch aren't quite there, and he doesn't have as high of a volume, but he has almost as many catches in actually fewer downs. I don't know why he's played fewer downs. It's very odd, but he only has 3 touchdowns on the season, but he's averaging 76 yards per game, which I think would still be good for top 20 in the league this year. So we'll take a look at that later on, but definitely good seasons out of our receiving core. I'll talk a little bit more about some of our depth guys. Hunter Henry been coming on as of late, not really what we hoped he would be by this point in his career. I figured he would be a solid guy getting around 40 to 50 yards a game. Maybe not as good as Antonio Gates, but on that level. He played at an elite level for the last 8 games of the 2016 season, but he just has not really played up to the level that I thought he could. He's still very good, pretty solid, but doesn't take the step forward that I exactly hoped for from him. But again, Davante Adams and Keenan Allen have such awesome years that I don't really know if it's even that big of a deal. Procise should actually go by yardage again. Hunter Henry. Craig Brink's had a pretty decent year. He hasn't been very, all that productive, but his speed on the other side of the field opens up our passing game quite a bit. Travis Benjamin was doing pretty decent before he got hurt. He was definitely more effective than Craig Brink was in that role, and it'll be probably better to have him in that role once he returns from the IR, which should be soon, or the disabled list, which should be soon. Injury report. I don't know what it is, so. Been a weird year for our passing game. Again, Josh Sitton hasn't allowed a single sack in 530 snaps. That's 2 years in a row we're going on now. I think he allowed, actually, it might be even longer. I don't know if he allowed one his last year in Green Bay either. No, he didn't allow one in 2016 either. So 3 years in a row, Josh Sitton hasn't given up a sack. By this game's sack metrics, he's probably given up a couple in game. Deshaun Snell has had a kind of a rough year in pass cover and pass protection. He's been beaten up a little bit by the more higher end pass rushers, but 4 sacks in 8 games is still a pretty decent rate to give up sacks at. Not a pretty decent rate to pass protect at when your primary duty is to run block, even though he probably hasn't been as good as that as he should be. But, a little bit of improvement. Some guys have rough second years in the league. It's not, I didn't expect every person from that first draft class to continue to play solidly as they did in their rookie year, because we got unbelievable production out of that rookie class. Like, Sean Snell allowed 9 sacks his rookie year. He's probably going to allow that once again, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Slosson's had a decent year. He's been probably the weak link of our offensive line, but he's declining. His strength has gone down. His impact blocking's down a little bit. His run block and pass block are benefiting from his 62 confidence, but he's definitely not the player he was the first 2 seasons of this series for us. But he's still one of my favorite offensive linemen in the league, so we're hoping to keep him around for the rest of the year, try and keep him healthy, and hopefully his play can get a little bit better in the second half. Parker Donahue's been pretty good first half of this year. He only allowed 2 sacks, so that's always very good to see, especially playing against some of the elite edge rushers in the AFC West that he is playing against. And Eric Lair, in his first full season, has only allowed 1 sack, so that's pretty nice to see. And then our other guy, obviously, we already talked about, was Josh Sitton. I want to improve the depth a little bit next season, but I've been very happy with the people that that was the wrong button. The people, our performance from our offensive line. They need to get a little bit better on blocking over the second half of the season, but pass protection, they've been very good. And Kevin Pierre-Louis is actually leading our team in tackles, and I don't know if that's because I played a few more games this year than I have in the past, and traditionally in Madden, this year anyway, in defenses, if you play a lot of nickel, the right outside linebacker actually assumes the role of the middle linebacker, so Kevin Pierre-Louis is playing in the middle of the field a little bit more, which is my preference because he's a little bit more athletic than Denzel Perryman is, but he's been really good this year, especially in pass coverage. He has a sack and an interception to go with it as well, and I'm very happy to have the linebacking core that we have right now. I would still like to get somebody who's a little bit better in coverage than Denzel Perryman and Kevin Pierre-Louis in terms of ratings, but for these guys, they're definitely very good so far. Casey Hayward having an okay year. Dondre McKee doesn't have a pick yet, but he has been very productive in terms of stuffing the run. Clinton Dix doesn't have an interception yet as well. Not a lot of players on our team with interceptions. Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, he started out the season really well, but Melvin hasn't really. He's kind of tailed off since then. He had a sack in his first 3 games. I still expect him to have a really healthy sack total this season, but he's had just as many games, I think, where he didn't. He's had 3 games where he didn't have sacks and 5 games where he had at least a sack, and these games obviously inflate the totals a little bit, but he's been overall very productive for us this season, and I really like his versatility. Opens up what we can do so much defensively, and our defense has fallen off a little bit since last year, but I didn't expect us to lead the league in passing defense again. I thought that was a complete anomaly last year. Let's look at tackles for loss. We'll go through the rest of the tackles really quick and see. Jason Barrett's kind of had a rough year, so is Jonathan Joseph has been okay, but he hasn't really been what I expected he would be. Some of these guys down here are part-time players. Vinny Curry with 5.5 sacks in the season. Russell Newkirk with 3. I believe 2 of those came in the first half of his first game, but he's still been a pretty effective nickel pass rusher for us, sliding in. And Joey Bosa's versatility opens up. Our nickel package, we can put 2 extra pass rushers in, because Russell Newkirk's a really good pass rusher but isn't great against the run, and Vinny Curry's the same way, and we can slide Joey Bosa to that inside D-tackle spot that he's kind of used to playing from his days in our 3-4 scheme as an interior presence, and he can slide in there on nickel and allow us to have an extra edge rusher in. Corey Legit leading our team in tackles for loss. He's been very good this year as a part-time player. He also has a sack and a half, which is nice to see. So does Dominique Menard. These two guys both play in our base package. They're good, really good run defenders. Dominique Menard's actually a pretty decent pass rusher too, but I want to develop him into a really good run stopper first, and that's what I've been working on. So right now he's a part-time player, but if we don't retain Vinny Curry and we don't get an extra edge rusher next year, I expect him and Dominique Menard and Russell Newkirk to be our 2 interior pass rushers next year, and then Joey Bosa can be a full-time edge guy. 6 tackles for loss for Perryman, and Ingram, and Bosa. Kevin Pierre-Louis has 5 sacks. I think Ingram's our leader. Yeah, it's nice to see that Melvin Ingram's having a really solid year, because 1, we were transitioning to a new scheme, a scheme he's never played in before. But 2, he had kind of a down year last season. He only had 7.5 sacks, and the first year of this, he wasn't all that special either. He only had 9. Like, he had 9.5. That's still a good total, but he definitely had a down year last year. He's really rebounded this year, though. 9 sacks already. He's definitely on pace to set a career high in that category this season. All right, let's see. Anybody else worth noting? Vinny Curry. He started out the season really well. He's been an effective pass rusher from what I've seen, but he definitely hasn't been as productive. It doesn't seem like he had 3.5 sacks through like the first 3 games of the season, and now he has 5.5 through 8. So definitely tell off a little bit. But the same for Russell Newkirk. But they've been effective at forcing pressure, which I like quite a bit. The only times that the quarterback usually get off clean passes is when these guys don't force pressure. So Kevin Pierre-Louis, Denzel Perryman, Casey Hayward, all with a sack at least as well. Interceptions were not super productive in that department. I really wish we were a little bit more, because like Andre Howe has an interception, but Jason Verrett doesn't. It's been a really weird year in terms of our pass coverage. Like Denzel Perryman and Kevin Pierre-Louis have the same amount of picks as Casey Hayward. So it's very strange. But Greg Zuerlein been very, very good this year. The only kick he's missed is one that I kicked myself. It is unfortunately probably going to be his last year with the team, though, because the way our cap is going to spike, I don't think I want to pay $3 million a year for a kicker again. I did it last year, last time around out of necessity, because I was still getting used to the kicking meter, and having somebody with a strong leg actually made it a little bit easier. Kirby Pritchett been very, very good this year, 45 yards per punt on average. Kick returns, I don't know why Keenan Allen was ever returning kicks, but Roosevelt Eugene's been very good in his first year of, I would say, full-time kick returning, after having a really good performance in the playoffs last year, after we decided to take Craig Brink off kick returns. Craig Brink's been effective as a kick returner this year as well, though. And Roosevelt Eugene is averaging a ridiculous, and this is probably inflated by that punt return touchdown he had against the Texans, but he's averaging a ridiculous 15.8 yards per punt return. We'll see if we can look at the stats on the season. Obviously, he hasn't been used as a receiver very much, but season stats. I gotta go all the way back to punt return. He had one game where he was like, well, in this game he only had 4, and this game he only had 7, but he had one game under double digits all season. Obviously, these 2 games inflate it right here, but very, very effective as a punt returner this year. I'm very happy with his performance. So we'll look at the league ranks for Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen, and then we'll look at team stats, standings, and then we're going to get out of here, because this video's gone on a little bit long. Phillip Rivers, 4th in the league in passing yardage, and he actually might end up taking the lead, because we've already had our bye week, and some of these teams haven't yet. So, although, well, I don't know. So, well, they might have, because Phillip Rivers, if you take a look here, is actually 5th in the league in yards per game. But Aaron Rodgers has been injured, or was injured. I think he's healthy now, but he was injured for a majority of the season, and Brett Hundley was playing, so, or Brett Hundley, excuse me, and Brett Hundley was playing, so he would actually be ahead of Rivers if he had played the full season. But a lot of really good seasons out of quarterbacks. Drew Brees having a really good year. Jason Watt having an excellent second year after being a pretty good rookie. And he's definitely the best quarterback out of that class so far in terms of production, although I think Brent Vollers will prove to be just as good when he gets the opportunity. But Jason Watt's leading the league in passing yards this year. Imagine going from Tom Brady to Jason Watt is just as good. Ben Roethlisberger 2nd. So Phillip Rivers is 4th in passing yards. He is tied. Well, he's not tied. He's 5th in the league in touchdowns. Russell Wilson also has quite a few. Percentage-wise, I believe he's 2nd just behind Ben Roethlisberger, and that was even after the rough game that he just had. He's still at 71%, just ahead of Russell Wilson, it looks like. Yards per game, it just showed he was 5th. Passer rating, I believe he's 2nd to Ben Roethlisberger. Look at Ben Roethlisberger's season. Look at his last 2 seasons, actually. We'll pull up the year he had before, too, because he was just as ridiculous. But he's had back-to-back seasons of 125 and 126 passer rating. It might be like the best 2-year run for a quarterback in the history of the NFL. And the first year, if he didn't throw 14 picks, it would have been just as high because he had similar production. But it's been an insane run for Ben Roethlisberger, and how could you not be that successful in that offense? And yards per attempt, I imagine it's going to be Ben Roethlisberger first. Andrew Luck's actually ahead of Rivers as well, but Rivers is pretty comfortably in 3rd over Andy Dalton. So, receiving-wise, we'll take a look here. Danny Amendola leading the league in catches. Keenan Allen's 4th in catches. I just wanted to see if Devontae Adams is here. So Devontae Adams is like 5, 6... Oh, sorry, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's tied for top 10 with Bardage and Olsen for receiving or for actual catches in the league. So he's a top 10 catcher, and I believe he's going to be pretty high in terms of receiving yards as well. And Keenan Allen with a pretty safe lead on DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that us shutting us down in that game against DeAndre Hopkins was actually a pretty key factor in that. But yeah, it doesn't look like Devontae Adams is as high right here. So if we take a look, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Number 12 in receiving yardage. So still been a very, very good receiver on the season. Yards per game, as it'll show, is Keenan Allen. And most of these guys are in order still. Although it looks like Randall Cobb would actually be the number 2 receiver in the league. He must have had a bye week already. Receiving touchdowns, Keenan Allen has 11, which is 4 more than anybody else, and I believe he had a game where he had 3 touchdowns this season, which really, really helps out with that total, as he's pretty close to eclipsing 1,000 yards, and it's just halfway through the season already. So, no, he had a game where he's had 4 games where he had at least 2 touchdowns, and he scored in every game except for 1 this season. So he's on a record-setting pace in terms of touchdowns, I'm pretty sure. But we'll take a look at that in just a second, and we're good with receiving. I just want to see defensively how the sack, and I know these aren't complete, but how the sack leaders look. J.J. Watt is in 1st, Cam Jordan 2nd, Cox, Dunlap, and Ngakoue actually having a really solid year. Yeah, so Bosa would still be like top 10 in sacks, and so would Melvin Ingram. You just want to see, but Greg Zuerlein's made the most field goals in the league, but what's the accuracy? Greg Zuerlein's 1st in field goal accuracy, so it looks like Greg Zuerlein might actually make the Pro Bowl this year. That's going to be interesting. And I just want to see where our punter is in terms of the league, and it looks like he's about average, honestly. Not the greatest, but not the worst, and we had one of the worst punters in the league last year, and that was Drew Kaiser, so definitely take their improvement, even if it's just a mild improvement. We can always improve Pritchett with XP too, so I'm not all that concerned about that. So Julian Evans leading the league in kick return average and punt return average. It is Roosevelt Eugene by almost an entire yard over Pat Pete, so that's nice to see. And was there one more thing I wanted to take a look at before we get to team stats? I can't remember, so we'll go to team stats now. Been a pretty balanced year. We are actually not that high in offense. We're middle of the pack in terms of yardage. Passing yardage, I imagine we're going to be pretty high. Did I pass us? No. We're kind of low, actually. We're like, what, 7? 8. We're 8th in passing yards. We are like 5th to last in rushing yards. It's been a rough year. But in points per game, we are top 5. So we have a really good scoring offense, if nothing else. And we've also been really good at capitalizing on touchdowns. Top 5 in passing touchdowns. So that's nice to see. We're probably like almost last. Yeah, we are 2nd to last in rushing touchdowns. And I think that not having Melvin Gordon kind of ruins that. And I've actually scored 2 of those running touchdowns on long runs too. So that's even more interesting to see. And another was Spencer Ware from like the 1 yard. So we're really not getting a lot of rushing touchdowns in simulation, because I can just name 3 that I got myself. But we are 3rd in the league in total defense yards allowed, which we're kind of close to a lot of these other teams, so it might be hard to kind of tell. And it looks like a lot of these teams have their bye weeks as well by this point in the season, so it's pretty accurate, I would say, other than the Panthers. The Panthers might have a better defense than people are giving them credit for, but Seattle is definitely has the best defense in the league so far, and we play them later in the season. We play the Seahawks and the Steelers in Week 15 and Week 16. I think we play the Seahawks the second of those games, but that's going to be a potential Super Bowl preview as they are 7-1, and the Chargers remain the only undefeated. I remember what I want to check now, and it was the standings. We'll do that after. But we are middle of the pack in passing yardage, it looks like, which is expected. I didn't think we'd lead the league in passing defense again, but we've gotten carved up a couple times, and it's kind of skewed our stats. So, like, in general, like, we've had a couple games where we gave up 400 yards, so that's why our total defense is so bad. Like, it doesn't look as good as it is, but I think our defense is an elite defense still. We are third against the run, which is what Seattle's, I think, the best against the run in the past this year, so that's nice to see. That's really not nice to see, but it's a great team achievement, at least. Maybe not a good thing to see, but the Chargers are third, just ahead of the Jets and Redskins in terms of that, and I really think that stopping run's a little bit more important. We did just get eaten alive by C.J. Anderson last week, although he didn't have that much production. He was breaking tackles left and right, and I think we're going to be like leading the league in sacks. We are third in sacks, and interceptions I think we're going to be like last. So no, there are teams with only 2 interceptions. It looks like we're about middle of the pack, maybe a little bit below average. Third down percentage, we are pretty low, it looks like. We're like bottom half of the league. That's not very good to see in terms of third down percentage. Red zone efficiency, let's look at that. I'm surprised we're not higher, honestly. We only score in the red zone 73% of the time. And our red zone defense is a little bit below average as well, it looks like. And it's probably above average in terms of that. We're really good at forcing field goals in the red zone, though. We've only allowed 11 touchdowns, which is good for second. So that's nice to see. It's not unlike a team like the Vikings, where they've given up 12 touchdowns and only 1 field goal. So we're good at holding them when they do get to the end zone, relatively. And obviously we're going to be last in penalties because I play a lot of these games anyway. I think we have an even turnover differential too, so we could be a better team if we were forcing a little bit more turnovers, but we're undefeated. I'm not going to really complain. So we'll take a look at the standings really quick, and then we will cut this off and let you guys go back to whatever you were doing today. And then we will get to the next week's game against the St. Louis Rams. That'll be up in a few days. I'd imagine it's going to be up 3 or 4 days from now. We're the last undefeated team in the league. Seahawks and Steelers still with 1 loss. The Bengals, we also play them later in the season, and they only have 2 losses on the year. We play the Browns, and they're in this group with all these 5-3 teams. They'll go by conference. So this is what the playoff picture looks like. It's going to be Chargers, Steelers, Bengals, and Colts if the season ended today with the top 4 spots. And then the Jaguars and Patriots would have the 2 wild cards. No, actually, I'm wrong. The Chargers, Steelers, Colts, and Patriots would have the playoff spots because the Steelers and the Bengals are in the same division. So the Bengals and the Jaguars would be the 2 wildcard teams. So the Raiders and Browns are the 2 that are kind of outside looking in, and then the Bills, Texans, Jets are still in the hunt, and it looks like the Jets might not even really be in the hunt all that much. They have quite a bit of ground to make up. They've had a rough season so far after going 10-6 last year, but the Ravens, Chiefs, Broncos, this group's kind of all out of it, and we still have to play the Chiefs and Broncos each once, so they could potentially get an extra win out of that if they do manage to take us down. I don't know if they will, but it's definitely possible. It is going to be a divisional game. NFC, Seahawks 7-1, Vikings 5-3, Lions 5-3, Saints 5-3. So if the season ended today, it would be Seahawks, Vikings, Saints, and Panther. No, the Seahawks, Vikings, Saints, and what? The Eagles? Would it be the Eagles? Yeah, the East wasn't up there, so not a good year out of the AFC East. The Eagles, Redskins, and Cowboys are all 4-4, and the Giants are 3-5. So they're technically not out of it yet. And it looks like the Lions and the Panthers would be the 2 wild cards if the season ended today, and the Cardinals are right there as well. And it looks like a couple of these teams are still in the hunt at 3-5. Definitely not out of it at this point. But NFC's been a pretty strong conference this year. Not a lot of standouts other than the Seahawks. A lot of teams that are very close to each other. And we'll just quickly go through every single division quickly for you if you are interested in that. So that's going to do it for this mid-season recap. Oh, I should say one more thing too, and I'll bring this up in next video. We cut Spencer Ware and we signed Lorenzo Taliaferro. I wanted to get a new running back for power potential short yardage situations to replace Alfred Morris, because I think Alfred Morris has been very ineffective, and we couldn't really cut Alfred Morris because he isn't being paid very much. I think he's making like $900,000. We signed him to a very team-friendly one-year deal. And Taliaferro and Spencer Ware was making like 2.5 because we signed him in preseason free agency, and I didn't want to click that. And Spencer Ware, while he did score a touchdown, he went like three carries for 1 yard in the next game after that, where we were trying to get him going. And again, that's probably more of the line thing, but I do want to try and go in a different direction, get another power back in here to take carries away while we wait to, because could be a potential. Taliaferro could be a guy we potentially hold on to in the future. I'm looking at a few running backs in the draft, but if Taliaferro proves that he is going to be a useful player in this short time, that's like the one thing we've struggled with this entire series is finding someone who can be a power back. So if he can provide a spark in that role, we'll definitely look at holding on to him in the future, but we just need to try all the options that we can at this point. We have 7 weeks left for evaluation, so he's probably not going to get many carries in the next game because he will still be getting acclimated to the team. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode of the Chargers franchise. I hope you enjoyed this Year 3 midseason recap, and I'll give you guys a look at the rest of our schedule so you can see our schedule in reference to this. Is gonna be, yeah, okay, so if I look at this game, I'll see the rest of the schedule. This is the rest of our schedule. We got 8 games left in the year, and a lot of games that are going to be very close games. I don't see a single game on our schedule that shouldn't be a very close matchup, because even the Browns are a pretty good team this year. The Chiefs and Broncos, Raiders, they're not quite at the talent level of the Chargers maybe, but they definitely have players, and they definitely take those games seriously. When you're a division rival and you have a chance to knock off an undefeated, you are playing with an extra sense of emotion. And the Rams have a very good defensive front, and they've been pretty decent offensively this year. So even though they're not the biggest, the only reason I'm even going to play that game is because it's a Sunday night game, and I tried to put in an effort to play all of the night games. So a lot of good games down the stretch, it looks like. Hopefully Chargers can get the team together, stay healthy, and continue their undefeated run. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time for more Chargers franchise in Madden 17.